I'm holding a book in my hand, which must mean it's time for a book review. This is episode 2 of Anchor's Points. Let's go on a little journey. So the Graveyard Book. Okay, the Graveyard Book is about nobody but Owens. And the reason why he's called Nobody is because when he was just a little toddler, his parents were killed by a man called the Man Jack. And we learned about the Man Jack later on in the book, but there was a reason why the Man Jack slaughtered nobody but Owens' parents and his sibling too. And so nobody was able to get away. And he got to a nearby cemetery where a vampire named Silas was able to rescue him along with all of the ghosts that inhabited the graveyard. And a decision was made, and the ghosts gave nobody the freedom of the graveyard, which gave him the ability to pass through into the graveyard and also to interact physically with each of the ghosts there. And eventually he would develop other kinds of abilities too. And so, if you haven't picked it up already, because my description isn't that great, the Graveyard Book follows the same kind of plot as the Jungle Book, except that instead of taking place in the jungle with a bunch of, wild and dangerous animals, it takes place in a graveyard with a bunch of quirky yet dangerous supernatural creatures. Just based on that concept alone, on the Goodreads scale, I would give the Graveyard Book a 5 out of 5. For some reason, this book reminded me of Clive Barker a lot. In many ways, Neil Gaiman and Clive Barker are very different from one another. But there's also quite a few similarities between the two British creators. They both made names for themselves in the 80s and early 90s. They have created some of the most iconic horror and fantasy characters within the past 40 years. Their books for children, including this one, include murder and nightmare-inducing creatures. And yet you wouldn't dream of denying adventures like the Graveyard Book to your child, based upon the darkness within the book. I keep relating Gaiman to Barker because the Graveyard Book reminded me of Barker's film, Nightbreed, often. The man Jack, the killer that stalks our main character, Nobody Bod Owens, reminded me of the serial killer David Cronenberg portrayed in Nightbreed. The man Jack's venomous hatred for Bod reminded me of the hatred Cronenberg's Dr. Decker had for the Nightbreed. The ghosts that take in Bod after his family is slaughtered, and he is still only a toddler, remind me of the Nightbreed, so happy in their little world, cut off from the living. But even though Gaiman and Barker have their similarities, and the Graveyard Book made me think of Nightbreed, the Graveyard Book is an idea unto itself, and there are many rules about being a ghost or being a human, given the freedom of the graveyard, that set up a truly original world. I love that I was reading something that reminded me of Nightbreed to my 9-year-old daughter. I love that I was reading the Jungle Book, but it was set in the graveyard. And that this version of Mowgli was learning how to make himself disappear, or pass through solid objects, and that his version of Bagheera was a vampire. Gaiman's playful use of prose and his casual regard for extraordinary things only amplifies the reader's feeling of wonder. Gaiman never pauses for exposition to make sure that the reader is able to take in the fantastic, ghost-filled world. You simply wade in as deep as you are able to go and enjoy being carried away. What stood out to me most of all was this quote from the book. I feel it sums up the entire message behind the Graveyard Book. If you have not yet read the book, please go do so and finish this review when you are finished with the book. This quote captures the essence of what it means to be alive. This is what separates the boy Bod from the spirits who protect him. This quote is from Silas, the vampire who protects Bod, and I really want to capture it here in this video. You're alive, Bod. That means you have infinite potential. You can do anything, make anything, dream anything. If you can change the world will change. Potential. Once you're dead, it's gone. Over. You've made what you've made, dreamed your dream, written your name. You may be buried here, you may even walk, but that potential is finished. I love that quote so much. To me, the idea behind it is that we're all going to, at one point, just become stories or ghosts, right? Just memories for people to think about. And right now, while we're still alive, this is our chance to actually have an impact on the material world. And that's just a perfect message for kids. So, like I said, that's why I'm giving this book a 5 out of 5. All right, that's it. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time on Anchor's Points.